Hey everybody, Andrew here and welcome back to my channel. So I'm gonna do something a little bit different today. See, typically on my channel I discuss Canadian media, whether that's movies, whether that's TV shows, or whether that's now including video games. I'll put the link up. But what I'm doing today is a little bit different. Today I'm gonna take a look at what happens when an American show comes to Canada and observe and examine how they treat Canadian culture. Okay, so let's get started, shall we? The Simpsons. The hard truth is, The Simpsons were almost a religious experience for me when I was a kid. Every week when I would get home from school, I would watch reruns on CBC before going over to Street Sense, much on demand, and then switching back to CFMT for another episode. Every Saturday, I would go channel hopping looking for reruns of old episodes. And then on Sunday, I would watch the latest episode and discuss it with my classmates on Monday. On the weekends that I wasn't home, if we were near a mall, I would go looking for Simpsons merchandise. Books, comic books, tapes, later DVDs, and just whatever else I could get my hands on. I loved this show as a kid, and even now as an adult, it's had an impact on my life. I've hosted a Simpsons trivia night. I've written for a website about The Simpsons. The show has always been a part of my life, but here's the thing. It wouldn't be until 2002 that the show came to my country, Canada, for the episode The Bart Wants What It Wants. So what happens when The Simpsons came to Canada on February 17th, 2002? Let's take a look. The episode begins with The Simpsons being chased by the Olympic Committee after Homer stole the Olympic flame in order to prevent it from postponing his favorite shows. Okay, so I am one of those non-Olympic fans, so to Homer I say, thank you. Now, this episode aired in February of 2002, so this was right around the time of the Salt Lake City Winter Games. Embarrassed and tired of this happening yet again, Marge throws the flame to the Olympic Committee, ending the chase. Bored, Homer decides to check out the Springfield Prep fundraiser, and the Simpsons get into various hijinks. Bart tries their bumper cars and ends up getting a kid put in an ambulance. Homer manages to ruin a bouncy castle. Lisa fawns over the fact that this school is, actually funded. And Marge runs into Wolfgang Puck because cameo. At the fundraiser, a few bullies are playing a game of keep away until Bart intervenes and using his slingshot launches food at them until they go away. The girl he ends up helping is Greta Wolfcastle, the daughter of Rainier Wolfcastle, this show's Arnold Schwarzenegger knockoff. Greta is voiced by Reese Witherspoon. Greta invites Bart over, while Homer and Marge try to pry Lisa away from the school. Okay, so we are 5 minutes in, no Toronto, no Canada. Okay, let's see how this goes. Back at home, Marge is getting Bart ready, and Homer is giving him advice, when they notice the ground is shaking. They go outside and see that it's being caused by Rainier's Hummer. This is another reference to Arnold, as Arnold Schwarzenegger was the one who convinced AM General to sell Hummers to the general public. At Greta's house, Bart sees some of her dad's movie props, and they watch Itchy and Scratchy on DVD with commentary. An interesting thing to note about this is that DVD had just overtaken VHS sales, and were now way more common. Part of the lure was the bonus features, which included commentary. Greta also gets closer to Bart on the couch, indicating that she likes him. Back at the Simpsons house, they're having dinner, and Greta again shows affections by holding Bart's hand, but he mistakes this for a thumb war. They go back and forth as Bart continues to show up to Greta's house, but this time he does so with Milhouse in tow, which disappoints her. Bart being oblivious may seem a bit odd, but you need to remember that until this point, he had only dated Jessica Lovejoy, and I guess technically Sarah Plainenthal, and had a crush on Laura Power next door. So Bart is still very inexperienced when it comes to relationships. The back and forth continues. This time, Homer decides to take Rainier out to Moe's to show off to all his friends.
before they go to a basketball game.
Okay, by the way, we are about halfway through this episode and still no Canada.
While they're at the game, Greta decides to ask Bart if he'll come to her school dance, and he agrees. Unfortunately, the next day at school, Bart overhears that Principal Skinner is going to be attempting stand-up comedy and is aware he has very weak material. He decides to play hooky from the dance and instead go heckle Seymour. At the comedy club, Seymour is ripped to shreds by everybody. Bart, Milhouse, even his mother. Going back home, Bart is confronted by Lisa over his absence from the dance, and she points out to him that Greta likes him and that if he doesn't feel the same way, he needs to let her know. Bart does this in an ice cream store, and Greta ends up crying in front of everybody. Bart feels bad about how he broke up with Greta, and he goes over to apologize at her house, but he discovers that she is now dating Milhouse as her rebound. Bart feels bad about this at home, but Lisa tries to reason with him and explain that the only reason he wants her back is because Milhouse is with her now and he doesn't have her. Of course, this point goes over Bart's head and he decides to stalk the two before eventually working up the courage to call her. Now at this point, she explains to Bart that it's over and that she's going to Toronto.
Oh my god, 17 minutes into a 23-minute episode, they finally mention Toronto. Yay!
Bart, in a desperate plea, begs Homer to take them to Toronto, and the family rallies behind him, eventually convincing Homer to let them go. And he even promises to get them there first class. First class bus, that is. Arriving in Toronto, we see that they're already phoning it in with their jokes because their fellow passengers include a Sasquatch, a Mountie, and a hockey player. After Homer is told not to cross by a street sign, he explains that they have free healthcare here, so he'll be a-okay. What follows is a montage of them doing touristy stuff, including taking photos of the CN Tower, the Draft Dodgers Museum, and the Sky Dome. Now, what bothers me about this little gag is that the CN Tower and the Sky Dome are right next to each other, and it seems that the Simpsons want us to believe that these are two magical attractions that are far away from each other. Bart and Homer are in the CN Tower, and Homer tries to give Bart a talk-up before they're interrupted by a tour guide telling them that they're closed. But Homer gives him a US dollar, and apparently that gets you a breakfast in the CN Tower. Outside of another sight gag, we get a few more jokes about Canada not being America with Canadian graffiti. Yay! Then they find Rainier's next movie, Undercover Nerd. Bart spots Greta, and Homer tries to talk him up before giving up. Bart goes over, but is interrupted by Milhouse. The two fight and end up breaking through another set, curling for loonies because, again, Canada, not America, before Greta confronts the two and stops the fight. Bart begs for her to take him back, but she refuses. And she also breaks up with Milhouse, explaining that she was hoping for somebody more masculine. The two friends make up and decide that they're going to join the Canadian basketball team because it's just that easy. Oh yeah, and Seymour's doing stand-up again because screw a B-plot.
Oh. Okay, so really, Toronto being in this episode was nothing more than a glorified cameo. When they talked about this, they were really hyping it up. I remember there were promo packages on Global. I remember the magazine Not for Adults hyping it up. And then it just became Schoolyard Whispers. And when this episode finally aired, it was okay at best. I think the biggest problem is how much this episode focused on Greta, Reese Witherspoon's character. It focused so much on this relationship and it just really went nowhere. Bart was oblivious the whole time and he only wanted her once Milhouse was with her. It felt like a really bad relationship episode, and they really just crammed Toronto in at the end. Even when Toronto is on screen, it's a complete embarrassment. These writers have worked on The Critic, Gravity Falls, The Conan O'Brien Show, and here they are reaching to the bottom of the barrel. They're using that annoying hoser accent. All the jokes are America, but Canada. But considering that The Simpsons had only recently visited Brazil, maybe I'm not one to complain, considering that episode was a whole lot more offensive than our episode. Now, thankfully, they did visit Canada twice. First time when Homer, Apu, Ned Flanders, and Grandpa were smuggling prescription drugs, and in the episode Doe Canada, where Lisa ends up in Niagara. And that was a little bit better. They did acknowledge more Canadian cultural accomplishments, but once again, that stupid hoser accent. It's a joke, okay? Every character had it. Now, as a kid, this episode was just meh to me. As an adult, I see the flaws, but this wasn't the episode that broke my heart. That would be in season 13's Barting Over, when a 14-year-old me would get excited about an episode featuring Blink-182 and Tony Hawk, and somehow they managed to just shove them to the background. Okay, so this is my first of what I hope are many videos where I examine US shows coming to Canada, but let me know what you think. Did you watch this episode when it aired? What did you think about it? Was it great? Was it bad? You tell me. Anyways, I'm Andrew, and I'll see you later.